Well, today's episode, we're going to review, of course, since it's Friday, we got New Japan Pro Wrestling with more of the New Japan Cup. However, these are the last two matches in the first round, so we'll see who will be advancing. And then after that, we got AEW Rampage with some interesting matches. We got Riho taking on Nyla Rose. If you guys remember clearly, these two ladies are the first two ever AEW Women's Championship champions. And of course, we got plenty more to review on. And of course, who levels up on this latest episode of NXT Level Up. But first things first, we will be reviewing MLW's latest underground wrestling. As you know, MLW has been terrorized by some calling cards that we're seeing. And of course, those calling cards reveal the rear under ugly heads when they were wearing gas masks. Now we get to see who they are. But as you know, the feud between Jacob Fatu and Alex Hammerstone reignite once again to find out how this is going to play out, who's going to walk out as the um, MLW World Champion. But that's at another time. So the feud continues. But also we got some news updates to tell what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling, such as the bookings, what debuts, what's been going on since then. So let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to the Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, let's begin with MLW Underground Wrestling. It opened up with Lio Rush making his return to MLW, but he faces the Samoan werewolf, Jacob Fatu. Now, throughout the entirety of this match, we do have Alex Hammerstone, who's been talking about Fatu. Now, Fatu has claimed that Hammerstone has been dunking him, but you know how that is. He says that wasn't true, that he's always up to a challenge with anybody. But however, it was Fatu who was back then who was ducking him. So that had turned out well. But the only thing in this type of match, we see Lio Rush, he has to rely on his speed to take someone down like Jacob Fatu. He seems like he had everything covered, but the strength and power of Fatu was just too much until he applied the moonsault. 1, 2, 3, it was over. But as soon as the match was over, Hammerstone got into his face, and then boom, the brawl began between these two. So that's how it's gonna end right there. Now, as you know, Cesar Duran has established his own group known as Azteca Lucha. As you know, we already have Sam Adonis, but now it appears that they have two championships in their possession. Taya Valkyrie with the women's featherweight, and now um, John Morrison as the MLW National Openweight Champion. But but John Morrison has told he's asking for anybody who's willing to step up. We'll find out soon enough who will be doing that. Now, our next match, we have tag team action. We got the Bumaye Fight Club consisting of Mr. Thomas and Myron Reed, who are at war with the Brits. We're talking about the Billington Bulldogs, Mark and Tom Billington, the nephews of Dynamite Kid. Now, this feud between these two groups has started ever since the leader of the Bumaye Fight Club, Alex Kane, stole the Opera Cup from Davey Richards, claiming that he won it. But he also insulted the British, saying that nothing good has come out from them. But when you say something like that, they tended. But Alex Kane thought in his mind that the Billington Bulldogs don't have what it takes to take down guys like Myron Reed and Mr. Thomas. But don't count out the family lineage that's in the Bulldog's blood. But however, at some point, Kane thought he could help, but he got his behind taken out thanks to none other than the Billington Bulldogs' cousin, Davey Boy Smith Jr. And it was a huge upset for uh for the Bully My Fight Club, realizing they lost to the Brits, but you can tell that this match was far from over. It was, of course, it was a pinfall made by none other by both brothers that gave on to Mr. Thomas. But you know for a fact that the Bulmaya Fight Club will not rest until they prove a point saying that the Brits are nothing. Now, the feud has begun with Rio 1. As you know, Rio 1 has insulted Mans Warner many times. And then, of course, Mans Warner rammed Rio 1 with his car, and then he got bailed out by his second gear crew friends. But it appears that Rio 1 decided that he's going to sue MLW and Mans Warner for what happened to him because he showed up in a wheelchair. So we'll see what takes place in that. Now, something is happening with our current MLW World Tag Team Champions, EJ and Duca, and of course Calvin Tankman and Duca, who's now at war with the Samoan SWAT team, who are determined to obtain the tag titles. Well, that could happen. So basically, he's sending a message clear to them. Now, other than Real One, Mance Warner not only has a problem with that, he also has a problem with the masked gasman who attacked his good pal Microman. Now, these masked men, if you guys remember clearly, these guys were leaving these strange calling cards. Nobody knows why or why would they do that. Apparently, it revealed who was behind those gas masks. First, it was none other than someone you guys may remember if you're a pro wrestling fans in general, or you guys are fans from WCW or any other promotion. You may know this guy. Raven was behind it, but it turns out he's not alone. We saw someone you guys know, RSP, who in fact is now a member of whatever group is they're calling themselves, but he's not the only one. I'm not sure if I'm 100% sure if I saw who I thought it was. I thought I saw the Death Samurai Akira there. So I don't know what's the deal of this new group, but we'll see how that plays out. Now, our main event was supposed to be Hammerstone versus Lance Anoy, but you know for a fact that Hammerstone's focus is on Fatu, who's been antagonizing this whole thing. Now, Fatu, as I said before, believes that Hammerstone has been ducking him. Now, I can go talk about that a lot, but let me explain how this happened. Fatu has been determined to get another shot of the world title, but when Cesar Duran was running things, apparently Joseph Samel made sure that Fatu will not get another opportunity. But now that Cesar Duran is no longer in charge, basically he gets another opportunity. So now we're seeing, but it boiled over. And of course, Hustle and Power actually showed up to the deal with the Samoan SWAT team as well. So we got fights going on left and right. So this match ended in, I'm not sure if it's a no contest, but let's just call it a no contest. But that's how it turns out. So we'll see in the upcoming weeks with MLW, see how this goes out. But because I mentioned once before, the MLW had there were some things that happened with the channel they're in, Reel's channel. But we'll see about that at some point down the line in the future. So let's end it right here and move on with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Okay, New Japan Pro Wrestling. As I said before, we continue with more of the New Japan Cup. Now, these are the last two matches in the first round, so we'll see who will be facing who. I do have the list of the bracket for the next New Japan Cup, but let's get started with the start to finish. Our opening match, we have TMDK, more consistent with Costa Fujita and Zack Sabre Jr. taking on House of Torture Show and Yujiro Takahashi. Now, you all know how this is going to turn out. You know, Zack Sabre Jr. will probably think the House of Torture nothing but dickheads. That's always, but when it comes to these dickheads, we all know what happens then. They try to find a way to cut corners as they always have. This match ended when Sho blowed Kosa Fujita, and then of course putting his shockwave or shock murder shock, whatever he calls it, to finish the match so the ref wouldn't suspect the thing. But you know that Zack Sabre Jr. will not forget this. They may have won this one, but there will be a sign of retribution at some point. Now, speaking of the House of Torture, the other, as Zack Sabre Jr. would call them, dickheads, will Yujiro Takahashi and Evil take on just 4 guys. Well, in this case, it's just 2 of them. We're talking about Yoshinobu Kanemaru and Taichi. Now, you all know, as I always say before, House of Torture always finds a way to cheat. But the one thing that did was great. I don't know what Dick Togo was thinking. He decided to take a sip of Kanemaru's whiskey, and then, but luckily Taichi was able to cover his mouth, and then of course Kanemaru grabbed Evil's leg and then slammed it right into the abdomen of Dick Togo and spitting out the whiskey in his eyes. But it did give, of course, a victory roll type move by Kanemaru to, of course, Dick Togo to win the match. I'm sure Evil is screaming out of his lungs, cursing just 4 guys, but they lost. Now, as we mentioned before, in our next match, we have Bullet Club, consisting of El Phantasmo, Chase Owens, Kenta, and Finlay. We know there's been trouble in paradise with the Bullet Club. Well, not entirely, only with El Phantasmo. That's always been the case. But they have to focus on their match consistent of Taguchi at Strong Style with Despy, Ren Narita, and Minoru Suzuki. Now keep in mind, El Phantasmo had this tendency about recently. He felt that he was left out of the conversation when things were decided to have Finlay to join the Bullet Club. So that continues on. There was a moment he was hesitant to help Finlay, but the match did end it with the trash panda by Finlay to Taguchi to give the win. However, what is going on with Bullet Club? How they're going to deal with El Phantasmo's behavior? Do we think he's going to get kicked out? I don't know. I'm sure that the other members will definitely try to convince him, saying, look, just accept Finlay is now a member. So, I mean, as I mentioned, there's been leaders to come and go. I'm going to do a discussion video talking about the Bullet Club's leadership, like what they brought to the table and all that. So stay tuned for that. Now, our next match, we have the United Empire, Great-O-Khan, Mark Davis, Jeff Cobb, and Will Ospreay taking on Toma Akihama and the members of Chaos, Yano, Ishii, and Goto. Now, keep in mind, we know that Mark Davis has Goto in his sights because there's one thing that they want. It is the current IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles. But in this case, I have to say United Empire are trying to make a statement because they're in the New Japan Cup. But I hardly doubt that all of them are going to make it all the way to the finals. But it was, of course, Jeff Cobb with the Tour of the Islands on Hamna that gave them the win. So basically, they got this one. Now, our next match, we have LIJ's consistent with Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Sanada, and Naito taking on Chaos members Yo and Leo Rush. They team up with none other than the Roughneck, Shota Umino, and, of course, Tama Tonga. So I think this is a pretty good match as we speak. And I'm like impressed by everything. However, you know that the story in much of this is, of course, we're seeing, what's his name? Leo Rush has Hiromu Takahashi in his sights. But in this case, it was Shota Umino who picked up a good win when he snare trapped Bushi. Was it Bushi? Bushi giving him the win. But you can tell by the look of this is a pretty good team. Even Tama was happy that Umino was able to pick up the win. Now, our next 2 matches are the last 2 of the New Japan Cup's first round. We have Kyle Fletcher versus Yoshihashi. Now, keep in mind, in this particular match, we know that Kyle Fletcher has one thing in mind, is to get the IWGP heavyweight tag team titles with Bushimon has. I have to say this was a pretty good match. It showed a lot of character with, of course, Fletcher for what he is. Now they're trying to bounce back because we know they couldn't do that last year when they couldn't win the IWGP heavyweight titles. But Fletcher actually picked up a big win when he applied a tombstone onto Yoshihashi. But it does give him the consistency to put himself and Davis another shot of the IWGP heavyweight tag team titles. So, and then our next match, we have Aaron Henare versus Shingo Takagi. So basically, another member of the United Empire trying also to make a name. Now, Henare always claimed that this is his time, so he wants to prove it. But the interesting part, the town that New Japan is in, is the hometown of Shingo Takagi. So this is more like they should have won this, that this would be a home field advantage for Shingo. But however, it was the Street of Rage that actually allowed him to win. Now, however, here's the way I see it in this scenario. Aaron Henare has an opportunity to cash in. As you know, Shingo is the current KOPW champion. Aaron Henare, even if he doesn't win the New Japan Cup, he could actually go for that title. So we'll see how that plays out, because I believe his opponent that he will be facing is none other than Tama Tonga. So that's going to be interesting to play. But here are the brackets leading up to that. Let's see. For our next episode that will features New Japan, what's the day? Here's what we have for the ones. We got Kyle Fletcher versus Hiroki Goto. Aaron Henare versus Tama Tonga. Then we got David Finlay versus Great Khan. Shota Umino versus Zack Sabre Jr. Then we got Sonata versus Kenta. Tetsuya Naito versus Chase Owens. Evil versus Jeff Cobb. Mark Davis versus Will Ospreay. Now, I highly doubt that almost all of them are going to make it to the finals. I have that distinct feeling that we'll try to be in the finals if that's the case. But I don't know. He's one of the few that people are saying they could win. But we'll see about that. So for now, we're just ended right here. Next episode will feature the next New Japan Cup. So let's move on with AEW Rampage. Okay, AEW Rampage opened up with Sammy Guevara versus Action Andretti. Now, this is somewhat of a payback to Sammy to Action after what happened this past Wednesday, where Sammy tried to come out, possibly to help Chris Jericho, but Action Andretti intercepted it. I thought this match was kind of insane because Sammy would try to take the fight outside. He thought that by trying to wipe out Action Andretti was going to be enough. It wasn't. So, but you know how the JSA work. All for one, all for one. Well, Garcia decided to give Sammy Guevara the help by pushing Andretti out, and then, of course, applying the GTH, giving him the win. But, however, Garcia and Guevara will be teaming up this coming Wednesday with Jericho for the trios titles. But we'll see how that turns out till we get there. Now, I don't know what we had a very interesting thing with Darby Allin. As you know, we haven't seen him since he lost the TNT title, but looks more like he has something in mind, something that he's cooking. So we'll see how that goes out. Now, as you know, we saw this past Wednesday on Dynamite a brand new TNT champion, Powerhouse Hobbs, with that creep QT Marshall, who said that he had his back from the very beginning. And of course, he said that he has a scoop with his new QT TV, where he's going to unveil who was really the one behind that who broke into Wardlow's car. We all know it's QT. Why else did he have the TNT title? So he thinks that he's smart. Now, our next match, we have tag team action. We got the Acclaim along with Daddy Ass. They take on Starboy Charlie and Jack Cartwheel. Guys you keep seeing on GCW. It's great that they actually brought them up. You probably thought this was going to be an easy match. It was. But it was, of course, the mic drop by Caster onto Starboy Charlie to pick up the win. Now, we saw what happened last Wednesday with the Acclaim. when members of the JSA, more specifically Menard and Parker, were trying to get them to join. I highly doubt that the Acclaim are going to, because they do consider them as entertainers. But let's just say this: they're not sports, but they are entertainers. They are at a different level than the JSA. That's what I think. But I wonder how long this thing with Menard and Parker to try to recruit them is going to take them. Now, as I mentioned before, this coming Wednesday, Jericho made it clear that he and his Sammy and Garcia will be in Winnipeg, where this is a huge thing for them. As you know, we have seen championships exchanges on the line on certain occasions when it comes to the home field advantage, because Winnipeg is the hometown of both Kenny and Chris Jericho. But the trios titles will be in a defended three-way. I don't think this happened ever in AEW, but this is going to be interesting. But they can actually, both sides can actually lose to the Black House of Black in if they retain the titles. But we'll see where that takes us. Now, our next match, we have Preston Vance versus Konosuke Takeshita. I thought this match was very impressive, because you probably would have thought Preston Vance, who's big and powerful, will take on someone who has made a name for himself, not only in Japan, but also here in the States, most specifically with AEW. It was a hard fight. But, of course, Preston Vance has that weasel, Jose, the assistant, to get involved. But luckily, Takeshita knocked his ass out. Showed him a lesson. But apparently, Takeshita used a different move to put away Vance, and that's the backslide, which is a move that Don Callis said he has done many times. But I have that distinct feeling Preston Vance will not let that slide. He doesn't take loss very likely since he joined La Facción Ingobernable. But I wouldn't be surprised if they rekindle this little feud. Now, we do get a little video package from Swerve Strickland. It appears that he underestimated Keith for the last time. He couldn't expect that he was going to wipe out the entire Mogul affiliate. But now it seems like we're going to see more of this feud between them take place. So we'll see what Strickland has in mind to put away Keith Lee. Now, we do get a little interesting thing with Mark Briscoe. He comes out. Now, this was a bit of part of the spoiler alert that I mentioned. He, as you know, with the passing of Jay Briscoe, Mark Briscoe cannot continue as a tag team champion. However, he said that he was in talks with Tony Khan. He said that he had an idea. As you know, we're getting closer to Supercard of Honor on the 31st of March. He said, how about we get the best tag teams and put them in all places, but let's put the tag titles in the rafters and call this the Reach for the Sky ladder match. And this particular match will determine the newly crowned ROH World Champions. And of course, Briscoe announced who is the first team to be involved in this, and it's none other than his amigos, the Lucha Brothers, Penta and Rey Fenix. So I think this is a good move. Now, the obvious thing is who will be joining this little party. Well, we'll see about that in the upcoming weeks before Supercard of Honor. Now, our main event, we know these two ladies. They were the first two ever AEW World Women's Champions. We're talking about Nyla Rose and Riho. Now, as you remember, when Riho became the first inaugural champion in Washington, D.C. in 2019 in the hometown of Nyla Rose. Now, you know for a fact that Nyla Rose will never forget. But it was Nyla Rose 4 months later that defeated Riho for the AEW Women's Championship. And Riho hasn't been back to get that title since then. But in this case, this is more of a rekindle feud between them, since they were part of the early rivalry. But you know for a fact that the Marina Shafir was going to help out, since she's always at Nyla Rose's side. But don't count out Riho's small heart to try to kick out at every chance she get. But she was able to apply a pinfall onto Nyla Rose to pick up a really good win. But however, the party was cut short when Nyla and Marina attacked her. And then when they walked away, here comes the Outcast, Ruby, Tony, and Saraya spray painting the loser sign onto Riho. So basically, this war between the homegrowns and the Outcasts rages on. So something is about to happen sooner than later, but we'll see about that. So I think that's pretty much it with AEW. So let's see what happens in NXT Level Up. Okay, so who levels up on the latest episode of NXT Level Up? Let's just find out. Opening match, we have Indy Hartwell, who we haven't seen for a little bit, taking on Jakara Jackson. Now, Jakara Jackson, I cannot remember the last time we saw her on NXT Level Up, but it was a pretty good match. Now, keep in mind, as you know, Indy Hartwell hasn't had the best luck in her matches since losing to certain people like Jay-Z. No, not Jay-Z, Jane. A few wrestlers that, you know, they felt that they're not worthy to be part of the NXT brand or tried to cut in line in front of her. But it's great that she got back to the basics in order to deal with Jakara Jackson. But she was able to put her away with the Spinebuster, giving her a really good win. Not the biggest or best one, but a good win for her to get back on top. Now, we do get a little interview from none other than Odyssey Jones, who has two things in mind. Now, as you know, he did talk about the open challenge for the North American title. I know that's something he said that he has in mind, but he will probably pursue that at another time. But he has to focus on one thing at this point, and that is, of course, Von Wagner, who will be in the main event with him. So he knows exactly how Von Wagner is, because he knows Von Wagner is not listening to Mr. Stone. So that could be an advantage that Jones will definitely use on his behalf. Now, our next match features Quincy Elliott, who we haven't seen for a while, taking on the mysterious Scripps. I have to say, I thought this match was very interesting because Scripps, he's very agile, very quick. But when it comes to Quincy Jones, he's a bit of it, how do we say this? Not weird, but more unorthodox. You know what I mean? Now, it's not like I'm saying that, that his moves are strange. No, it's that he does things that you normally don't see in a wrestling ring. We've seen that with wrestlers like Danhausen and QT Marshall and Orange Cassidy. I mean, Orange Cassidy and Wendy Chu. But I thought this match would have fallen in favor to Quincy Elliott, but no, it was of course Scripps with the somersault that put away Quincy, and that was it. But somehow Scripps was able to overcome a much bigger individual than him. Now, our main event features Von Wagner with Mr. Stone to take on Odyssey Jones. Once again, Von Wagner refuses to listen to Mr. Stone. You know he's there. Stone is like right there, just knowing that he's going to ignore him. We know that he has potential to become a champion, but the more he ignores Mr. Stone, the more he's not going nowhere. But that gave Odyssey Jones enough time to apply the side slam onto Von Wagner to pick up the win. But the obvious thing is, we got to ask, how long is this relationship between both Mr. Stone and Von Wagner going to last? I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Stone decides, I'm going to leave him, since he refused to listen. That's possibly the case, but we'll find out in the upcoming weeks. So we'll end the reviews right here and move on with news updates. All right, so welcome to our news updates. Now, this one, once again, I talked about the effing trolls saying negative comments. I mean, we already saw that with Tam Nakano, then Himeka, but recently we've been hearing that Riho is now been gaining. Reports are coming in saying that Riho deactivated her Twitter page due to racism, bullying, and harassment. Can I just say this? What the fuck is wrong with people? If you don't like Riho, then don't say anything. It's that simple. I always say this to people in person, not on this channel. Why do we have stupid people in the world that do stupid things like that? I don't get it. Stupid. But anyway, let's move forward. As you know, WWE has announced their next class. People probably questioned who it is, but recently it was announced on SmackDown that Rey Mysterio is the first inductee into the Hall of Fame. So we're all very proud of him. As you know, I'm a San Diego native myself. I'm very happy for him that he made it to this. So it's still no information about who's going to induct him. I'm sure it's going to be good. I might get that sooner than I think, but we'll find out. But however, speaking of the Hall of Fame, rumors and people are speculating, saying that the Great Muta is also been inducted. Now we don't know yet. WWE hasn't even announced it yet. Great Muta would be a perfect candidate to be inducted. Reason behind it, as you know, um, he actually retired and all that. But we'll see how that goes out. Until anything is confirmed, we'll just go from there. Now, as you know, we're getting closer to WrestleMania weekend. The WrestleCon, the March Hitchcock Super Show that takes place on the 30th, announced another match. We're going to have Tom Lawler teaming up with the American Wolf, Davey Richards, to take on Kenta and the bounty hunter, Brian Keith. Now, GCW has announced for their Scene of a Crime event on the 22nd of April, we're going to have Rich Swann, who announced in the last updates he will be facing against Jack Cartwheel. I think that match is going to be a lot more fun. Prestige Wrestling announced for the Roseland 5 event that'll take place on the 29th of April. Effie makes his return. Now, Wrestling Revolver has announced something huge. Something that, now if you guys know this, they normally do their shows in Ohio and Iowa. No specifically, but now this is a year in the making that they've been planning. They're gonna have their first show ever in Texas on the 8th of July. It might take place somewhere in the Dallas and Arlington area. More info hasn't come in yet who will participate, but however, they do give a special thanks to Athena and her husband Matthew Palmer, who run the company MPX Wrestling, for making it happen. Yes, folks. Athena is married to the Monster Hunter Matthew Palmer, so basically they want to make this event happen in Texas since they are from there. It's kind of interesting now they're moving their promotion to other territories. I think it's a good thing for them. As you know, the Black Label Pro with the Observe This Brother event that takes place on the 25th of this month of March. They announced three more people involved for the BLP Rumble. They announced Warhorse, Steph DeLander, and Matt Nix will be participating. Now, final update does tell New Japan Pro Wrestling has announced for their American show, Resurgence is back, and it's going to take place on the 21st of May at the Walter Reed Pyramid in Long Beach, California. So tickets will be on sale soon for those if you guys are from the general area. There's still no information yet who will participate. I'm sure we will see some certain wrestlers from other promotions or so, but this is all we get from them. So I think that's pretty much it for our news updates. It's time to call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, we got Choco Pro with day 1 of episode 300 with 4 matches. I believe the main event features the Asian Dream Tag Team titles, which I think is going to be great. And then, of course, we have more New Japan Cup. We begin with the second round matches, I believe. And then after that, we do have NWA Power. I yet to decide what I'm going to do afterwards. So I haven't decided yet, but I'll just wing it on that one. So I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day.